Hi everybody, this is Crypto Rich working with you to get rich with crypto, filling our pockets with crypto profits. I have with me once again Dan Weinberger, the CEO of Morpheus Network, and we're going to be finding out on what is happening with Morpheus Network and how Morpheus Network is coping with the COVID-19 lockdown. And I was particularly curious to find out what are the implications and the potential for Morpheus Network, given that it is a blockchain project that seeks to enhance the efficiency of the supply chain. Now, before I introduce him, please subscribe, comment, like, all that business. It really, really makes a difference. Follow me on Twitter, CryptoRichYT, and please join my new Telegram group, Crypto Rich Official. All the links in the description below.
Remote work can be secure and accessible just like your work at the office. For a home office, secure your router with a VPN for an encrypted connection, routing communications of your smart devices through a secure private network. If you're working remotely, don't forget to connect to a VPN. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Hey, Dan, thank you so much for making yourself available. Really, really appreciate it. And you are so welcome. It's always good to talk to you. And I think the thing that we should talk about really is how are you and your family and the team and your friends in these times of Corona? How are you doing?
Times of Corona, we'll be hopefully remembering these times as something of the past in the not too distant future. But thankfully, my family, all my friends, everyone that I know personally, in my life, not a single person has, thankfully, been, contracted this horrible disease. We've obviously altered our lives dramatically based on it as well. Like everybody else, we are locked down here in Canada as well. My son, who's 6 years old, is out of school. For him, it's obviously difficult to be away from friends. My wife, who's a teacher, she's out of school as well. So we're all locked down together. Now, I'm saying that there's a silver lining to this as well. Obviously, we're dealing with a global pandemic, which is awful, and there's, we got to get through this period in our lives. But I don't think I'd be able to spend this much time with my family, locked in the house, having such an amazing time when, usually we're always on the run, always on the go. My son's got all his extracurriculars, my wife has work to do, and obviously I'm still working all the time, but it's fantastic having them around. And this is a special time that I think we'll remember sort of fondly as this great, family bonding moments that we have. So
great, very good. Well, I'm glad to hear that your family are well. What about the team, and how is the project working and coping with, with this different way of working with lockdowns everywhere?
Yeah, of course. There's obviously some alterations when it comes to face-to-face meetings, but we're lucky enough to be in an industry where a lot of our connections are done remotely anyways, right? So, I miss being, with Noam in the same room, working on projects together, but, we can be just as productive, using Zoom, doing these conference calls. Really, I mentioned it before that for the past few months, I haven't been traveling because my family member wasn't doing well and I wanted to stay local. And now this is kind of blended right into this Corona environment. So, I've been local for a while, but these remote meetings have been extremely successful. Obviously when it comes to communicating with the team, not only with Zoom and all that, but we have, whether it's WhatsApp or whether it's Slack or whatever it is, we're always communicating. And it makes business actually, in a sense, everyone sort of is available all the time. So, if you want to have a meeting, before, people kind of had that moment in their life where they're like, okay, I work in these hours and I don't want a meeting beyond, let's say 5 p.m., whatever it is. Now this coronavirus time, people are home all the time. They're going a little bit batty. If you want to set up a meeting, they're like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., sure, let's do that. Let's get on the call. So it's pretty interesting that everyone's life is altered by this. We're rolling along with it, and we're lucky enough to be able to still progress and push ahead with contracts and projects and development. So we're one of the lucky ones, I guess, in this whole mess of pandemic.
Right. Okay, so that's good. I mean, and I think that's the case for a lot of these blockchain projects, because a lot of them are decentralized, working all over the world. But what about the viability of Morpheus Network? Now, before I ask you this, right, just so anybody who's watching, and fill in anything critical that I've missed out, right? So what you're building is a blockchain-based supply chain and logistics monitoring, do everything, auditing, keep a track of all the paperwork, all in one super duper secure, simple system on the blockchain.
Yeah, that is definitely a good way to describe it. Within our supply chain automation system, there's different protocols which we developed. We talked in the past about our fraud prevention protocol.
Yeah.
So aside from, for example, all that process, also making sure that things are legitimate, right? Which actually during this coronavirus period is actually in the news with some of those fraudulent masks, N95 masks being shipped to different countries, being rejected at borders because they don't have the proper certifications along with those masks as well.
Right.
So I've been approached, as you mentioned, when it comes to Morpheus Network itself and this coronavirus period. Supply chain within the United States, but also all around the world, is really the biggest issue right now when it comes to what we're dealing with the coronavirus. So we've locked down everything because we want to flatten the curve, which makes complete sense. Curve flattening means that we won't have such a huge influx of patients coming to these hospitals that cannot handle this many patients. So when we flatten the curve, we just want less patients to go to the hospital at first. So we all stay at home. Let's flatten that curve. What we are saying, though, in the long run is that unless there's a vaccine, which is still probably a year to 2 years away, that eventually curve is flat enough, we're going to say, okay, now the hospital systems are able to handle patients. You're going to have to go back to work. We're going to have to basically take out this lockdown, unless people are able to lock down for 2 years, which is going to be a huge stress on the economy and so on and so forth. So basically, this issue itself, even though obviously the pandemic itself is a medical issue and this disease is awful, it's actually a supply chain problem. If we had unlimited amounts of personal protective equipment such as the masks, the gowns, the goggles, if we had unlimited amounts of ventilators and beds, that the hospital systems obviously need to handle coronavirus-based patients, right? If we had unlimited amounts, we wouldn't have to be locked down right now. We'd say, yes, it's a horrible disease. You don't want to get it, but we'd have a pandemic that if you are put in a hospital, you'll be taken care of. We'll be able to take care of you. So basically, we've been approached by a whole bunch of different, people within the hospital system in the United States, speaking to a great contact of ours in Germany. We're working with a hospital system in Germany, working with different hospital systems around the world, realizing that there's no pandemic management system that these hospitals, whether it's privately owned in the United States, whether it's government run, that they don't have in place in order to take care of the citizens that rely on these systems in case of a pandemic, right? So, we are putting together a system that would, automate the logistics, definitely help with sourcing as well, connect sourcing, make sure the maintenance of the systems are all, up to snuff when it comes to, a ventilator. If it's not maintained properly, you can't just stick it on another patient. So that's a huge issue as well. And making it so all that data is all actionable throughout the entire system. And then you can do simulations and load tests on the system as well. Say, let's simulate, a coronavirus pandemic. Let's say 10 years down the road, I'll say if this many patients, were rushed to the hospital and we had a specific respiratory issue that we needed ventilators and just like the coronavirus, we can load test the system to say, okay, we could handle it if this many patients come in, but if this many patients come in, we can't handle it. So they'd have to, let's say, increase their PPE, change their specs basically to make it so it can run for a different situation. And we can do load tests for different disasters, such as, let's say, the Katrina hurricane, Louisiana. There's a multitude of things you can look into to make sure that systems can, basically handle the load in a situation like this. And obviously right now, when it comes to not only, the United States, but also all around the world, we're seeing that we cannot handle the load of patients. And thus we're seeing a lot more deaths than we should. And we're seeing the healthcare providers dealing with the virus itself, but also with this anxiety and stress of, am I getting sick? And make my family sick? Do I have the equipment to protect me? And that's a supply chain problem. That is a supply chain problem there.
Okay. And are you talking to any companies that are dealing with the pandemic and getting supplies and stuff?
I am most definitely. Now, when I might, obviously I work with Morpheus Network. We're looking to onboard companies, want to transform, the way they do business, and that does take time. Now, when it comes to specifically, this critical situation with the pandemic, we are just trying to automate these shipments and push them ahead as fast as possible. So, right now you can almost call it like a freemium state where, I talk to a provider, I have a source, of PPE, and then I have a buyer in the States, for example. We will automate the entire process for them right away. So we have orders right now on the go where we're just trying to push ahead these personal protective equipment that we can get. It's N95 masks and gowns and so on and so forth. I have a lot of contacts overseas in China, and we're just making sure that we can help people as much as we can in this critical situation. Down the line, obviously, it's not our goal to be basically a free product. But in this situation, you do what you can do, and I feel that if even if I can help one person who has coronavirus actually or even let's say avoid getting coronavirus, then I'd feel that I've done something that I can actually help. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't forget it. So I'm glad I can help this way.
And then doing that will build your reputation for when this whole period is over and get you a lot of credibility.
I guess most definitely. But that's not our current target with trying to get these PPEs to people. It's people that need help right now, and if we're able to help them, then that's what we want to do. But yeah, most definitely. I do feel that in the future we will continue to work with these suppliers and tracking the goods. And as I mentioned before, it's very important to know where these goods are coming from, that they have the proper certification. So we don't want another situation. I believe it was 100,000 masks in Holland that were stopped because they didn't have the proper certification. Those masks, potentially were, not good to use, or maybe they just were missing that certification doc, and they could have saved a lot of lives, right? So who knows? But at the same time, this is why we've sort of developed this new system, and excited to get it out there and develop it even further as time goes on. So
okay, so that's the pandemic supply chain. What about post-pandemic for the regular, ordinary goods? Because I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a repatriation of manufacturing. We're not going to outsource so much stuff. The US is probably going to make its own medicines because it's been at risk of disruption from India and China. So what role will Morpheus Network have to play in a deglobalized, localized world?
You know what? Listen. When it comes to United States itself, it's not just like a local little town where everyone can just walk around. There's a ton of domestic shipping that happens.
Dad, you must remember, I live in England. You can just walk around.
You can walk around anywhere nowadays. That's true. Sorry, you can't go to your local store. Everything's sort of up in the air when it comes to that. But if the United States does take control of the pharmaceutical industry when it comes to manufacturing, it doesn't get the majority of its drugs from China like they're doing nowadays. There's definitely, a lot of room for supply chain optimization within the United States itself. So that wouldn't be a concern at all, number one. Number two, on top of that, think of the beyond just the shipments themselves, but the certifications and the document handling and all that's involved with these pharmaceuticals is so essential. Not to mention when you're shipping something like a pharmaceutical, things like temperature, IoT devices come into play as well. There are many roles for Morpheus Network when it comes to an Americanized pharmaceutical manufacturing system, most definitely.
Okay, fair point. No, I get that. That makes absolute sense. So that satisfied that, right? Now, you have still been in the midst of all of this, building, making agreements, doing deals. You announced one very recently with a pet food company.
Yes, most definitely. We've been working with this company for a long time. So it's such a great feeling to finally be able to talk about it and discuss the project. The company itself is VitalCan. They're the largest homegrown Argentinian pet food provider in the entire country, obviously. They compete with multinationals such as Nestle and Mars, and dealing directly with the CEO, Jorge Marcos, has been a complete pleasure. He's really a fantastic guy. Honestly, if you're setting up a meeting with Jorge, definitely clear the rest of your schedule because he's got some great stories. And obviously his first language is Spanish, but we actually bridge that sort of gap when it comes to the language barrier very well with his English, and I'm sort of getting a little bit more attuned to the Spanish accent, not the Spanish itself, but the Spanish accent. So really fantastic guy. And this project with VitalCan, it's not just a single system, which would be amazing as well. This is an end-to-end implementation, right? So from arranging trucks to tracking goods and everything involved with VitalCan's business. It's been amazing to work with Jorge and allowing us to dive into his processes, dive into his team, and become sort of part of his family as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in parallel to that, Jorge in VitalCan, he's very excited about his business and how we've optimized what we're doing with them. But he sees a lot of potential with Morpheus Network, obviously, right? So what he's done in parallel, he's created Polaris Network, which what he sees is the future for Argentina and all the companies in his own network he's developed over years to also implement similar structures, similar Morpheus-based systems where they can also take advantage of emerging technologies and revamp what they're doing as well. So really fantastic, that he's been able to open up these amazing doors. As I mentioned in the past, when it comes to our network partners, our ISVs, independent software vendors like Polaris Network, that Jorge Marcos, he's been in the industry for decades and decades and decades.
Mm.
I have been in the industry in Argentina for 0 decades. So, right away, Morpheus Network is getting this level of trust and reputation in Argentina based on Jorge himself developing this trust with these different, whether it's, food providers, different companies worked with for many, many years. So, getting that trust and getting those insights right away with Jorge, it's going to be fantastic as time goes on. And Jorge really sees that as well. And he's put a lot of time and effort into the expansion of Morpheus Network, even beyond his own business itself. So,
very good, very good. And when did you first actually reach out to them, just to get an idea of how the time that it takes
You know what? It was actually VTelCan that reached out to us, and the original implementation began over a year ago.
Wow.
Now it hasn't been it hasn't been a year straight. Argentina's gone through some ups and downs when it comes to their economy as well. If anyone's been following that, so we've kind of been implementing when it makes sense for them. If right now, certain companies when a pandemic hits, they can't be working on new implementation. So any
Sure.
sort of major government shift or economic breakdown in a country, sometimes we have to put a project on hold and come back when they're available, when they're not dealing with putting out forest fires and all that sort of stuff. So it's been over a year dealing with Jorge, but the launch has been happening for a little bit already, and just finally getting that press release out there and allowing us to tell everybody how amazing it's been implementing and the benefits that VTelCan is already seeing from leveraging the platform.
Right. Okay. Very good. And that's just to get an idea of how long it takes. These business enterprise solutions. The conversation takes a long, long time.
That's a great lead in that you say that, actually, because if it takes a year for a company like VTelCan to, let's say, finish up and implement and then get the PR together, announce, so on and so forth, that works for the structure that we did for their business. Now, I mentioned in I believe my last AMA, I don't know if the community members got the chance to watch it, but we do have a handshake deal with a multi-billion-dollar food provider in Canada.
Wow.
Now, yeah, very excited about that. Now, I mentioned the handshake deal. During this coronavirus period, we've actually pushed that ahead to actually complete get a signed contract, and not only a signed contract, but actually implement the first phase of our platform. So actually leveraging and using the platform right now, which is fantastic. So, when you look at a project like VTelCan, which took a little bit more time, with this company, they did have more pressures on them to get something completed a lot faster. And this whole thing was completed in about a couple months total. So it's, and
That's incredible.
It is. It really
That's really
is.
incredible. And because it's a food manufacturer, I imagine because they want everything to run smoothly, so people are getting food during the lockdown.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Now it's more important than ever that they have everything running as smooth as possible. They are a food supplier. They deal with retail locations. They deal with from farms. The actual food itself has to have the proper certifications. So what the initial system is actually a certification document handling system, making sure that all the certifications from all the suppliers are up to snuff and being able to be sold in Canadian retail stores, basically. So you can't just sell in Canadian stores without some sort of background information, not knowing if any sort of hormones are pumped into the food or any sort of pesticides and so on and so forth. You have to have certifications behind that. And they had an army of people keeping that updated in the past, and now we have an automation. And then beyond that, we just have a ton of room to grow with them as well. Already working on the next phase of the project, and excited to be working with them for years to come as our contract states. So.
And when can you go public and tell us the name of that one?
You know what? It's more so getting the proper PR in place.
Yeah.
They've said that we definitely do a press release with them as well. But right now we're just in the process of getting that proper marketing done together. And honestly, we have a lot of different projects on the go. So we have a writer working on that right now, and we're excited to release that to people at within the next I'd say few weeks for sure.
Okay, good. I shall watch out for that one. Thank you. And then what else have you got coming up you want to let people know about?
Oh my gosh, we got so many different projects on the go right now. Obviously, when it comes to different implementations, we're talking to different companies every single day, and there's different levels of different, I guess you could say, phases of sales cycle, right? So whether it's initial conversation, we had an amazing initial conversation. Actually, I think it was the second conversation with this company, but it was my first conversation with them, and they do these big industrial 3D printers, which are so amazing. They can just create anything on the spot. It's really amazing. And it's just a beautiful use case for us. Really reminds me of the pilot we did last year with Chin Lee. It was a compressor manufacturer out of China. Just a million parts of these compressors. And it's a similar use case with this 3D printer. So many parts, so much information when it comes to like electrical diagrams and parts breakdowns and so on and so forth. We can include so much data along with these machines, where the machines themselves do amazing things, but then you have all the information behind it with a simple, let's say, QR RFID on it. That project itself is very early on. What they are looking to do is get a shipping system implemented pretty quickly, so we are excited about that. There's another great project that is a little bit further down the sales cycle. We've just submitted a proposal. They do oil refinery, and they do tens of thousands of truckloads. What they're looking to do is automate that process of that weigh scale, where they're weighing all these trucks over and over and doing it in a manual sense. So basically using a system to automate that entire process. Another, extremely interesting project, and so much growth with them as well. Working with them directly, and their initial pain point is that weigh scale itself, making sure that everything's recorded as the trucks come in into the secure facility. But beyond that, shipping, let's say the logistics itself, getting to the final receivers, dealing with the major oil providers as well. There's a lot of work to grow with these different projects. So every day is something new and interesting. And I'm enjoying it. And I'm not letting the coronavirus or anything like that slow us down. We keep on pushing ahead. And I feel that's, sort of an advantage of ours too, that we can keep on working and pushing ahead. And some companies actually have a little bit of a breather right now where they actually put time and thought into how they actually come back and run their business in a more optimal fashion when the pandemic is over and we can all go back to work. So
very good, very good. Dan, is there anything else you want to let us know that we haven't touched upon?
Well, I just want to tell anybody that's watching that, definitely keep safe, social distance. There's no reason to be out and about when you have all the fun at home that you get. I find it almost ridiculous that people are striving to stay home before this pandemic. People love Netflix. They make excuses not to go out to the grocery store. They make excuses not to go out. And nowadays, suddenly that you can't, everyone wants to go play outside. That was our huge issue nowadays. Everyone's watching TV all the time. Please watch TV. Watch TV. Netflix is amazing. There's a billion things to watch. Just stay at home, exercise, stay active, pump yourself full of vitamin C just to keep your immune system strong as well.
Get sunlight.
Sunlight, get that vitamin D. I know that, listen, people don't know this about Crypto Rich possibly, but he is a health nut. He is a guru. He sends me these tips. And I listen to him because he's a healthy man. And I hope that, grow up healthy just like him as well. So.
Dad, thank you so much. That's really, really good. And you take care of yourself. And for everybody's watching, thank you. If you have any comment? Oh, actually, something I'd add, right? As well as all the other stuff that you said that they should do, they should also join the Telegram group for Morpheus Network and keep up to date with what's happening and ask questions and take a look at this project. And between now and when I see you next, this is Crypto Rich and Crypto Dan signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.